and never seeing another Christmas at all. This happened on Christmas Eve 2 years ago, and I still can't hear a knock at the door after dark without my stomach dropping. Freshly back in my hometown after moving out of an apartment with my ex. My parents had gone to Florida to spend Christmas with my sister and her kids, and I'd volunteered to stay behind and watch the house, water the plants, and make sure the pipes didn't freeze. It's one of those quiet suburban streets where every house has the same plastic candy canes along the walkway, the same glowing reindeer on the lawn, and the same wreath on the door. My parents go all out every year. Their front bushes were wrapped in lights. There was a glowing Merry Christmas sign on the window, and inside the place looked like a Hallmark set. Tree in the corner, stockings on the mantle, cinnamon candle burning on the coffee table. It felt cozy and safe. That night, I did what I always do when I'm alone on holidays. I tried to pretend it didn't bother me. I made myself a frozen pizza, poured a couple glasses of wine, and put on a Christmas movie marathon. I FaceTimed my parents for a bit, held the phone up to the tree so my mom could gush over the ornaments, and then they went back to their warm rental in Florida, and I went back to my quiet living room in the Michigan cold. By 9:30, it was snowing steadily. The street outside was dead. No cars passing, no kids playing. Just that muffled silence you only get during a snowstorm. That's when my phone buzzed. A text message. Package delivered, the notification said. I frowned, because I hadn't ordered anything. I opened the message all the way. It showed a blurry night photo of a front porch. My parents' front porch. I hadn't heard the doorbell, but sometimes delivery drivers don't ring it, so I shrugged it off, slipped on my slippers, and went to the front hall. I flicked on the porch light and looked through the peephole. There was no package. Just a man. He was standing on the porch facing slightly away from the door, hood up, shoulders dusted with snow. He wasn't wearing a uniform, just relatively dark clothing and work boots. One gloved hand was in his pocket, the other was holding his phone screen, glowing blue against his beard. As soon as I looked, he turned like he somehow felt it. He smiled and stepped closer to the door. I stepped back from instinct, even though there was still a solid door between us. The doorbell rang. He jabbed it like 3 or 4 times rapidly. I cleared my throat. Can I help you? I called through the door. Yeah, package for, I heard paper crinkle. For Miller? This address, right? Must have gone to the wrong house. Just need a signature. My parents' last name is Miller, but I never told him that. That's okay, I said. You can just leave it. He laughed softly. It didn't sound like a delivery guy's laugh, if that makes sense. It sounded annoyed. Come on, man. It's alcohol. I need a signature. You don't want this going back to the warehouse. Trust me. Something about the way he said warehouse made my skin crawl. No company name, no tablet, no clearly visible package. I'm good, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. You've got the wrong house. Then his tone changed. Not angry, but like flatter. Alright, he said. Merry Christmas, then. I heard footsteps retreat down the porch steps. I waited a good 30 seconds, then peeked through the peephole again. He was still there. Not on the porch, but in the yard now, standing by our little light-up reindeer. He had his back to the house, head turned toward the street like he was watching or waiting for something. The porch light only caught the edge of his face, but I could see enough to tell he wasn't actually looking at the decorations. He was watching the houses. Watching which ones were dark, which ones were full? It was hard to say at the time, but it felt weird. I backed away from the door. For a few seconds, I considered calling the non-emergency police line, but it felt stupid. Guy standing outside doesn't sound that serious when you try to explain it. I told myself that he was just some sketchy private courier, turned off the foyer light, and went back to the couch. The movie played on, but I wasn't really watching anymore. Every now and then I muted it and listened. Nothing out of the ordinary. By 11 o'clock, I decided I freaked myself out enough. I did a quick walkthrough of the house, checked the back sliding door, the kitchen door to the garage, and the windows. Locked. All good. I turned off the lights downstairs, leaving only the Christmas tree on, and went upstairs to the guest room I'd been sleeping in. Lying in bed, scrolling my phone, I kinda convinced myself I'd overreacted. People stand outside sometimes. Not everybody is a serial killer just because their jacket isn't branded, I guess. I eventually dozed off. I don't know how long I was asleep when I woke up to a sound that, at first, my half-dreaming brain tried to explain away. Like something metal lightly hitting glass. Distant, dull, but inside the house. I held my breath. The house settled. The heater kicked on. Nothing else. I checked my phone at about 1:43 a.m., I think. I told myself it was just the heater or ice shifting on the roof, rolled over and closed my eyes. Until I heard it again, this time with a scratch as well. I knew now it was undeniably from downstairs, and close, not through a wall. All the drowsiness vanished. I sat up, every sense suddenly tuned in. I could see the faint glow of the tree reflecting up the stairwell from under my door, so I knew the living room was still lit. I swung my legs out of bed and stood as quietly as I could, padding over to the door in my socks. I gently pressed my ear against it. For a few seconds, I heard nothing. Then, very clearly, the unmistakable sound of the backsliding door, shaking. The vertical blinds rattled softly. Then a hard, subtle thumping as somebody tested the lock from outside. My heart started racing in that sickening way where it feels like it's beating against your throat. Every instinct in me screamed, "Don't go down there," so I didn't. I backed away from the door, grabbed my phone off the nightstand, and dialed 911, shaking. The operator answered, and I did my best to keep my voice low. "Somebody's trying to get into my house," I whispered. "From the back door. I'm upstairs." She asked my address, my name, and if I was alone. I told her. I could hear her typing, her voice calm. "Stay on the line with me, okay? Officers are on the way." Downstairs, the rattling stopped. For a few seconds, the silence was worse. Then came a new sound, a dull thud like a shoulder hitting the door. Once, twice, then something else. Metal scraping. Tools, I thought. "Sir, are you in a locked room?" the operator asked. "Yes, upstairs bedroom, door's locked." "Good, stay there, don't confront them." I wanted to say, "No worries, I'm not a hero," but my mouth was dry. One more heavy thud echoed through the house, then an awful cracking noise. Wood maybe, or plastic, I didn't know. But the next sound I recognized instantly. The subtle rubbery whoosh of the sliding door opening. The house went still after that in a way that was somehow even more terrifying than the noise. The heater clicked off, and I could hear nothing but the dispatcher and my own breathing. Then, finally, footsteps. Not trying to be quiet, but not stomping either. They crossed the tile in the kitchen, then transitioned onto the wood in the dining room. Every step got a little clearer as they moved towards the living room. I could picture it in my head. That guy from the porch standing in front of the glowing tree, looking at the presents under it, looking at the family photos on the wall, looking up the stairs. "I hear footsteps inside," I whispered. "They're almost there," the operator said. "Just stay calm and hidden." I moved away from the door and into the walk-in closet attached to the guest room. It was packed with my mom's old clothes, extra blankets, and boxes of decorations. I squeezed myself into the far corner, behind a hanging row of coats, and tried to breathe quietly. Below me, a drawer slid open. Something dropped. The footsteps moved closer to the base of the stairs. Each step up the staircase sounded heavier than the last. The wood creaked in that specific way I recognized from growing up in that house. Whoever was on the stairs was big. He paused about halfway up. For a second, I thought maybe he was listening. My phone screen was glowing faintly in my hands. I turned it face down and held my breath. The steps resumed, getting closer. Then I heard this slight shift in echo that told me he'd reached the top of the stairs and turned into the hallway, right outside the bedroom door. The doorknob jiggled. He tried it once and twice. Then a quiet chuckle. "Really?" a man's voice said softly, like he was talking to himself. The knob jiggled harder, and there was a sharp bang as he threw his shoulder into it. The thin hollow corridor shuddered in its frame. I thought it would give. I flinched and almost dropped my phone. "Sir," the operator whispered in my ear, "are they at your door?" "Yes," I mouthed more than I spoke. "Officers are close. You're doing good. Just stay where you are." Another hit. The door groaned. One of the hinges made a tiny popping sound. This wasn't going to hold forever. In that moment, I genuinely thought, I might have to fight this guy. I looked around the dark closet. There was nothing remotely weapon-like, except maybe a metal clothes rod, but it was bolted into the wall. My eyes landed on a heavy snow boot on the floor, and my brain offered up the brilliant suggestion of throwing it at him. I almost laughed from the adrenaline. The man paused between hits, and I heard him breathing on the other side of the door. We were maybe 6 feet apart, with an inch of wood separating us. Then, faint and far away at first, I heard it. Sirens. The man heard them too. There was a muttered curse, then hurried footsteps down the hall, pounding down the stairs, and the slam of the sliding door. "Sirens," I whispered. "Yes, that's them," the operator said. "They're outside." Stay put until an officer tells you it's safe to come out. I heard multiple voices outside, then pounding on the front door. This is the police. Anyone inside, call out now. I finally stepped out of the closet, legs shaking so badly I had to steady myself on the dresser. I opened the bedroom door carefully. It stuck halfway. The frame splintered where the man had hit it, but it opened enough for me to squeeze out. I crept to the top of the stairs, hands up, and called out, "I'm upstairs. I live here." 2 officers came into view in the living room, guns drawn, flashlights sweeping. They holstered them when they saw I was alone and clearly not the guy they were looking for. Downstairs, the living room looked strangely violated. The tree was still glowing peacefully, but the sliding door at the back of the house was standing half open, cold air pouring in. The lock had been pried clean off, the frame chipped and shredded. Wet boot prints led from the deck to the kitchen, across the floor to the base of the stairs. They walked me through the house while other officers checked around the property. Nothing obvious was missing. My laptop was still on the coffee table. The TV was on the wall and my wallet was upstairs. But in the kitchen, one drawer was left open. That's where my dad keeps the knives. One was missing. That was probably the worst part to find out. Later, when everything settled down and the adrenaline gave way to exhaustion, one of the officers told me there had been a string of Christmas Eve burglaries the last couple of years. Houses that were clearly decorated, clearly had gifts, and looked empty. A lot of them had older folks living there who were out of town visiting family. "You probably saw your parents leave and assumed the place would be vacant all week," the officer said. "Saw the lights. Maybe watched the house for a while. Wrong place, wrong time for him that you stayed." I thought about the guy on the porch with the fake package, testing to see if anyone would open up. The time delivery notification. The fact that he knew the last name before I'd ever confirmed it. I also thought about how easy it would have been to just crack the door, sign some fake form, and let him put one foot inside. This day, I'm grateful I didn't. My parents replaced the door, added cameras, and got a security system. They double-check every lock religiously now. I still house sit for them, but I don't try to play it cool anymore. If anything feels off, I call somebody. I check the cameras. I turn on more lights than I probably need. And every Christmas Eve, when the street goes quiet and the snow deadens every sound,